Barely one day after striking a defiant tone, Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson told his nation today that he would resign his post later in the summer and stand down now as head of the Conservative Party. It marks the beginning of the end of a chaotic, eventful Johnson premiership, as Amna Nawaz reports.
Amid a cresting wave of anger within Britain, especially his own party, Boris Johnson admitted today what most everyone already knew. It was time to go.
It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister.
But this was a resignation from his party as its leader, not his premiership, at least not yet. His 3 years in power marked by tumult and upheaval, now coming to a close after a mass exodus from his government crescendoed in recent days.
As we've seen at Westminster, the herd instinct is powerful when the herd moves.
Dozens of ministers resigned. 2 top cabinet secretaries left, saying their consciences would no longer allow them to serve Johnson. Former UK Health Minister Sajid Javid.
Treading the tightrope between loyalty and integrity has become impossible in recent months. And, Mr. Speaker, I will never risk losing my integrity.
The cause? An attempted cover-up by Johnson, who promoted his former aide, Chris Pincher, to a top legislative post despite sexual misconduct claims against him. Johnson tried to claim he didn't know about the accusations, then later walked that back.
Thank you all very much.
Even as Johnson leaves the party helm, he says he'll stay on as Prime Minister until a successor is named.
What a pathetic spectacle.
Earlier today, opposition Labour leader Keir Starmer threatened to bring the matter to a vote of no confidence, saying it was a matter of national interest.
He needs to go completely. None of this nonsense about clinging on for a few months. He's inflicted lies, fraud and chaos in the country.
The 58-year-old former journalist and London mayor leaves behind a messy legacy, rife with scandal and brazen political moves. He is credited with leading the country out of the European Union.
What is it that we're going to do? We're going to get Brexit done.
But the Brexit transition has been rocky, notably a stagnant UK economy, disputed trade agreements stemming the flow of goods, and unresolved border issues with Northern Ireland. The COVID-19 pandemic led to one of the largest scandals in Johnson's tenure. Johnson publicly called for lockdowns and social distancing, leading Britons to isolate, unable to say goodbye to loved ones or grieve together. But privately, it was revealed, Johnson was hosting and attending parties in large groups. The embattled Prime Minister first denied his involvement, coercing his cabinet to back him, then went on to face national scorn for lying and a nearly fatal no-confidence vote in Parliament in early June. Johnson is, however, commended for an effective vaccine rollout and a high rate of protection for British citizens.
The most important thing you can do under all circumstances is get your booster.
But his departure comes as public trust in his leadership hit record lows. A poll last month indicated that 3 in 4 Britons viewed him as untrustworthy. Even in his resignation remarks, Johnson was unfazed, saying he was, quote, immensely proud of his administration's achievements.
I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world. But them's the breaks.
And the timeline for finding Johnson's successor will be announced next week. For more on the resignation, we turn now to Anand Menon. He's director of the UK and a Changing Europe research initiative at King's College London. Anand Menon, welcome back to the NewsHour. Thank you for joining us. So to be clear, Boris Johnson is still Prime Minister. He says he will not step down until a successor is named. So what are we looking at in the way of a timeline? How long will he remain in that role?
Well, firstly, just to correct you, he's caretaker Prime Minister, and that makes a difference because it means that he can't initiate policy changes or bring in great new tax policies or anything like that. He is constrained in what he can do. He's not as powerful as he was as Prime Minister. But as for timeline, well, that depends. As you said, the rules will be defined by Conservative MPs next week. Some people are saying at the moment that he could be there, Boris Johnson could be there in Downing Street until September. He himself said October. I think what Conservative MPs will do over the weekend is have conversations among themselves about whether they can shorten that timeline, whether they can make the leadership contest quicker than it might ordinarily have been, simply to ensure that Mr. Johnson is not there in Downing Street for that long. And they don't want him there for two reasons. One, I think the trust has gone. But two, we face real problems in this country, not least a very acute cost of living crisis. And if government is hampered by not being able to take long-term decisions, that's not going to help our response.
So what's keeping him from stepping down altogether right now? I mean, he says he wants to stay out of a sense of duty and obligation. There are those with a more cynical read. There have even been some reports that says he wants to stay because he retains the use of the official country estate where he and his wife have an upcoming wedding celebration planned. What's your take on this?
Well, there are stories in the British media tomorrow about this party on the 30th of July. Whatever his reasons, whether it's to plan his future, whether it's to have the party, whether it genuinely is a sense of duty, this was Boris Johnson's decision. And the problem the Conservative Party faces is this. Boris Johnson is leader of the Conservative Party because of the support of Conservative MPs, and that he has lost, and there is a contest underway. Boris Johnson is Prime Minister because of the backing of Parliament. So the only way to force him out and to stop him being Prime Minister against his will would be to have a vote of no confidence in Parliament. But the Conservative Party doesn't want to do that because that would trigger an election, and at the moment they are behind in the polls.
So when you take a step back, I mean, he has survived so much. He's been a bit of a Teflon leader, right? The fallout from Brexit and the COVID response, lying about the parties. Why do you think this one issue was the straw that broke the camel's back?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. It wasn't this one issue in isolation. It was this one issue on top of parties, on top of a dysfunctional Downing Street, on top of a number of things that are, on top of electoral defeats in by-elections that really worried MPs. And so when we came to this final story, which was a story both of bad judgment and of deliberately misleading on the part of the government, I think Conservative MPs simply thought, we're behind in the polls. He's no longer sort of electoral magic in the way he used to be. We need to get rid of him now because the calculation, I think, was made that Boris Johnson has started to harm the Conservative brand.
It may be too soon to talk about legacy, but when you look at the last 3 years, this is a man who went from a landslide victory 3 years ago to this moment today. So what can you say about his leadership in the UK and what he leaves behind?
I mean, I think firstly, it is too soon to talk about legacy, partly because it's only just happened, partly too, because of course he might have 2 or 3 months left and who knows what will happen over the next 2 or 3 months. But I think some context helps. Yes, Boris Johnson was a fantastic campaigning politician. That being said, you know, the reasons for his decisive victory in December 2019 were partly down to the opponent he faced. He was facing a uniquely unpopular leader of the Labour Party. So, you know, we need to be a bit more measured in our assessment of him. But I think, you know, to give you a quick take, I would say here was a man who was a fantastic campaigner, but nowhere near as good when it came to the nitty-gritty of actually governing.
And in just a few seconds we have left, is there any word on who's likely to be the next leader? Who will fill in his role?
It's a massive long list that would probably take me more time than we have just to read out. There are 2 or 3 early favourites, but elections for Conservative leader are the hardest elections to call because they're complicated, they're secretive, and they involve politicians trying to canvass the support of other politicians.
We will be watching for sure. We thank you for helping us to make sense of it all. That is Anand Menon of the UK and a Changing Europe Research Initiative at King's College London. Thank you for your time.